Hello and welcome to Kiss My Asparagus podcast. I'm your host, Latasha, and today I have a special guest, Mr. Bryant Meythale. Bryant is a current applicant to medical school and is a health, nutrition, and fitness coach and mentor. He works for Plant Powered Metro New York, mentoring participants to transition to a whole food plant-based diet. He mentors virtually through Jumpstart programs, as well as in person for Food for Life classes. He's been living the whole food plant-based lifestyle since 2015. And after researching the health benefits for short and long-term health, including chronic disease prevention and reversal, weight loss, longevity, and so on, he plans to pursue lifestyle medicine like the various doctors that are currently leading this whole food plant-based movement. If you all could welcome Bryant.
Hello.
Bryant here. Hi, Bryant.
Hello, Tasha. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Of course.
So I have some questions to ask you about your background and how you got started with whole food plant-based living.
Sure.
I know you grew up in the Bronx, right?
Yes.
Is that where you're currently at?
Oh, yeah. Still here. Yeah. So born and raised.
Okay. So tell me, how did your upbringing shape your perspective on health and nutrition?
Yeah. So I grew up like in an area where obviously like the Bronx is one of the areas that have like very high chronic disease rates. Especially seeing like within my family, but also in my community. Like things like high blood pressure, diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I was always interested in that. And since I wanted to become a doctor since a very young age, I wa- I was always exposed and also interested kind of like learning about it and learning like the root causes of it. So that was definitely like a big part of like my kind of early introduction to this whole, plant-based lifestyle.
Okay. So you told me earlier when we hopped on the stream that you were Ecuadorian.
Yeah, a mix of Ecuadorian and German. My parents both emigrated here, so then I was born here. So
Okay.
yeah. But in terms of like the like cultural foods, pretty much yeah, it's like a lot of Spanish food, like a lot of I mean, some of it's plant based, some of it isn't. So it's like like growing up, it was more so like we weren't that much like going out to fast food restaurants all the time. It was more so mostly home cooked, but we were still eating a lot of like animal products and some processed foods and things like that. So it was more so like transitioning away from the animal products. So yeah.
Okay. So how did your family's eating habits influence your relationship with food? Were
Yeah,
they
so it
healthy influence?
yeah, it was kind of, it was pretty much we didn't really think about it much in terms of health before before I started learning about it. But my mom pretty much does most of the cooking, so it was pretty much like we would just eat and not complain, like just eat whatever she makes, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, she was also, I mean, she's also like health conscious, so it wasn't we would still have fruits and veggies and salads and stuff like that, but we would also have a lot of, not a lot, but a considerable amount of meat and dairy, etc. So it was kind of like, I guess you can say, like a kind of healthier omnivore diet. But as we know, it's not really that healthy. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how it started. So, but at least we weren't like eating a lot of fast foods, like, or a lot of processed foods.
Gotcha. More so home cooked. So what was
hmm
your family's reaction when you decided to go whole food plant based?
Yeah, so it was because it was kind of a gradual process, and I was also sharing with them. It wasn't really like anything too like drastic. It was more so I was kind of leading it, so I was telling, okay, look, let's switch to almond milk, or let's have some tofu, etc. So kind of like gradual switches. So it wasn't really like anything drastic in terms of my like nuclear family. In terms of like extended family, we have like a family group chat, so I would always maybe like every like maybe like once a week or every 2 weeks I'll share like a recipe or I'll share like a video or something, kind of like just like trying to raise like to raise awareness about it, not necessarily trying to like force people into it. You know what I mean? So that's been kind of my approach with family. Same thing with friends too. Just because obviously we want to share this stuff with them because we know that it's really healthy. So, but at the same time, we don't want to like push them too much. So yeah, I mean they're pretty receptive, and they pretty much a decent amount of them started to make some changes like as a result of the things I've been sending and sharing and stuff like that. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, can you share some of the biggest health benefits you've personally experienced since you've gone plant based?
yeah, so personally, I didn't really like have because I started relatively young. I didn't really have any like chronic diseases really, but I did have like slightly elevated cholesterol, and that improved within the first few weeks. Like that's something that we usually see. Cholesterol improvements, blood pressure improvements, etc. For me, it was mostly that, and but also I did have some mild acne because I was like relatively young, so I did have some acne, and that cleared up within the first few weeks too. And that was a really surprising one because I didn't really know that it also improves like skin health and acne. And that so
Mm-hmm.
this was kind of like as I was researching, I was starting to make these changes. I also noticed improvements in like energy, improvements in sports since I play basketball and I go to the gym. So improvements in stamina, energy, also improvements in recovery time from like from sports or from the gym. Yeah, better digestion, better mental health, like mental clarity. Yeah, but those are pretty much for like me personally, like the benefits that I've seen.
Yeah, I can relate to all of those benefits that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, like especially the energy and mental clarity. That's one thing that
Yeah.
I can't go back to the way I was eating before because that like changed my life dramatically. That's such a
Yep.
The mental clarity is a big one.
True. Yeah.
So, I know you're passionate about chronic disease prevention and reversal. What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the most compelling studies or cases that you come across in your research?
Yeah, so so I started like following a lot of like the plant-based doctors, like Dr. Furman, Dr. Greger, et cetera, et cetera. So so I started like, reading their books, and they obviously have hundreds of studies cited, right? So I can name some of them, like the China study, that's one of the biggest ones, and that's Dr. T. Colin Campbell's study. But there's also like the Adventist health study, the nurses health study 1 and 2, et cetera. So there's
Brian, I'm
tons of
sorry.
like
Can you repeat that? You started to.
oh, sorry. Yeah. So in terms of the actual names of the studies, I do know some of them off the top of my head, like Adventist Health Study, like a Nurses Health Study 1 and 2, the the China study. So that's Dr. T. Colin Campbell's uh, main study, but there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of like actual studies that show that whole food plant based nutrition is optimal for health and for various like chronic diseases, hypertension, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, even things like cancer, autoimmune diseases, even like Alzheimer's, dementia. So there's tons of research on those. In terms of like testimony cases, I've come across many of those as well. Like for example, like a few years ago, I was following this guy. His name is John McMahon, and he was a type 2 diabetic. He had heart disease, etc. And he actually created his own like documentary called I Thrive, and it was his own journey trying to reverse diabetes and heart disease. And he ended up losing 100 pounds in 9 months after switching to whole food plant based and reversing heart disease, reversing diabetes, even healing most of his diabetic neuropathy in his toes. So that was like in 2017, I think. So that was kind of early on in my journey. And there's tons of cases similar to that. Even like on the Forks Over Knives website, there's a whole like section of like people telling their stories, healing diseases, losing weight, etc. So yeah, there's definitely tons of them, and if we had more time, I could get through so many of those, including the people that I've mentored as well. But
Yeah.
basically, there's a lot of like similarities in some of them, but they're all unique as well. Yeah.
So what is your mentoring like entail with, I know it's with Plant Powered Metro New York,
Mm-hmm.
the Jumpstart and the Food for Life programs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you kind of talked about some of the success stories a little bit you touched on, but like, what does it entail exactly? How do you walk them through the process of transitioning?
Yeah, so in terms of like like in Plant Powered we do virtual jumpstarts, which is basically like an online program. So they get like educational sessions, usually like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So they're learning a lot like during those sessions. And but they also get mentoring. So we do group mentorship. So let's say we have like 100 people sign up for a Jumpstart and there's like 20 mentors. We get like five each, so basically we split them up into groups, and then we do group mentorship. So where like everyone shares how they're doing each week, etc. What are some of the changes they've started to make? Any questions they have? And then there's also the one-on-one mentorship. So we also do like usually like half an hour to 45-minute calls each week with each mentee. And so there's definitely a lot that goes in with that program in terms of learning, but also the practical aspects, right? Like, okay, now that I know this is really good for me, the science is behind it. What do I eat, right? So then that's like the educational part, and then the practical stuff. And so yeah, I think, and then in terms of the in-person stuff, it's more so it's kind of like like we usually do like four classes at a certain location. So like one each week, and it's usually like a 2 hour class. So it's like 1 hour of education and 1 hour food demo. So that's the cool thing about the in-person class. They also get to try the food. So and we actually like prepare it like in front of them, so they get to actually see how it's made, and they one of the cool things about that is that they learn how simple it is. That
Mhm.
it's not like this weird thing that's like out of this world. Like, oh yeah, look, we're using beans, we're using veggies, we're using whole grains. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of them starting to see that it's not impossible to do, and once they start to learn, and like little by little, like a gradual process. We do see like after a jump starts, or like it's like 90% of them continue to eat whole food plant based, um, pretty much close to 100% after. And those, in terms of those 10%, they're mostly trying to do it. So maybe they're like 80 to like 90%. But for the most part, we see a really high percentage of people stay on it because they see the benefits. So
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
example, we've seen, and like the jump starts are typically 21 days, but it's like a week of prep time. So it's like pretty much a month, right? So and typically we see like people lose between like 5 to 15 pounds within that first month, which is usually like, that's typically like our average range we see. And people tend to do blood work afterwards, so we see like their cholesterol going down, their blood pressure improving, their A1C levels improving, etc. And they notice similar benefits as to what I mentioned before, like better energy, better digestive health, better mental clarity. So we see like, and even things like pain, like because we get people of like all different ages. So some of them have like arthritis, and some of them have back pain, etc. And we notice that they say, yeah, my pain is much better too, because of the lower the very anti-inflammatory nature of this way of eating. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just amazing to see how much people are able to benefit when they actually do this. Yeah.
Gotcha. So tell me, what are some common misconceptions that some of your mentees might have about the plant based lifestyle, and how do you address
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, so there, there's till typically we hear things like, "Oh, can I get enough protein eating this way?" I'm sure these are things that you've heard too, like, can I get enough calcium? Because they believe that, oh, we need to get calcium from dairy. Am I gonna like not have enough nutrients, right? Um, yeah, those are something. Oh, like, are there any negative effects, or for example, like, what about all the pesticides and the plant foods and stuff? And so typically the way we address it is through like education. So we just teach them, okay, oh, another big one is the soy. Is there because there's a lot of myths about soy, and so we just teach them through the education. And so we show them the study, we show them what the various doctors have said about it. And so, for example, with like the protein issue, we explained that, yeah, you can get plenty of protein with plant-based eating, with the legumes, the lentils, even some veggies have it, whole grains have it, like quinoa, etc. So there really isn't an issue of protein deficiency. Most people have a fiber deficiency, and so that's one of the big things that we help people emphasize as well. And also we teach them about the issues with animal protein, in terms of which is like Dr. T. Colin Campbell's research, which increases cancer risk, etc. Plus the other issues with the animal products. So, like the cholesterol, the saturated fat, the endotoxins, TMAO, etc. So we teach them the negative effects of the animal products and the processed foods, and then the positive effects of the plant foods. Like that way, they really see both. Um, and then yeah, so those are pretty much the typical myths that we hear. We teach them about, yeah, you can get your calcium from greens, like from your
Yeah.
dark leafy greens, from your beans as well, right? And then also with the iron thing too, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, you need to get iron from meat, but actually the heme iron is actually inflammatory.
Yes.
So the non-heme iron in plant foods it's actually good for us. And then we teach them like little tricks, like including vitamin C with their iron meals to improve absorption, and the turmeric and black pepper thing, and so we teach them a lot of tips and tricks like that too. And then once they start learning it and they start to implement, they start to see, okay, wow, this is definitely doable, and I don't have to worry about those myths and stuff. And for like soy, for example, we teach them how, yeah, actually the studies show soy foods are actually anti-cancer. They're actually protective of things like breast cancer and prostate cancer, etc. And so a lot of it's like kind of like helping them to unlearn a lot of these myths and misconceptions that they've heard, even about other diets like keto and carnivore, and like all these different things, because there's so much that people are bombarded with, right, in
Mhm.
the media, and now with the internet and social media, in the commercials that they're seeing on TV. So but I think once people really do see that, it really opens their eyes, and they start to be open to implement these changes more.
Yeah. So tell us about the turmeric and black pepper thing. I've never heard of that. What's that
Oh
about?
yeah, so there was a study that came. Well, there's a bunch of studies on turmeric. It's actually the most studied spice ever, and it has, I think, over 20,000 studies on like the health benefits of it. But one of the studies showed, I mean, several studies have shown that when you combine turmeric and black pepper and some kind of healthy fat, obviously like a plant-based fat, it actually improves the absorption by like over 20 times. So whenever you make like, like whenever, like, let's say if you do like a turmeric tea, or you do put turmeric in your food, always put like black pepper with it, and it's one of those tricks to improve the absorption. And turmeric is, man, so many amazing benefits: anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, etc. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good tip. I'll apply that in my
Awesome.
daily life. Um, yeah, so the I've definitely heard about soy myself, and I actually avoid it myself because
Hmm.
of hearing that it's estrogenic.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah.
something that you've been heard studies that are counter to that? Because that's something I try to avoid for sure. And I want to
Oh, like
make sure
still?
the audience
Still?
understands where you're coming from when it comes to soy.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So to explain further about like this, like like the science behind it. So it turns out that so for example, in like breast tissue, there's a very high percentage of cells that are very sensitive to estrogen, right?
Mhm.
Same thing in the prostate, same thing in the ovaries, in the uterus. So typically, the reproductive um, based, like in terms of like reproductive health. So in terms of reproductive cancers as well, um, it turns out that there's two types of receptors for estrogen. There's the alpha and the beta receptors. And interestingly enough, the soy foods like edamame, tofu, tempeh, etc., activate the beta receptors, and the beta receptors help to turn down the alpha receptors, which is the real culprit. So the alpha receptors are the ones that drive things like breast cancer and prostate cancer, ovarian cancer. So it turns out that the animal-based hormones that we get from animal foods, that's the real culprit. It's not the soy-based foods. In fact, the soy foods are very protective against these things because it basically turns down the proliferation of the alpha receptors. So, and that's something I learned from Dr. Furman and pretty much all of the main plant-based doctors, but one doctor that really emphasized it a lot was Dr. Christy Funk, because she's a breast cancer doctor, and
Can
she
you can you spell
yeah.
her last name for us?
Oh
So
sure, yeah, it's Funk.
okay.
Um, and so she actually is a breast cancer doctor, and she and herself used to be against soy until she read the studies. And then she realized, oh, wow, I was actually wrong about that. And I was telling my patients the incorrect thing before. Sorry about that. And then she, because again, in science and health, right, there's always learning, right? There's always new studies. There's always new things
Yeah.
that we need to. So she was very honest about it. And then when she learned about it, she herself changed her own diet too. And so now she recommends basically whole food plant based and not avoiding soy, making sure she actually, because of the study, she actually wants people to eat enough soy because most people aren't, right? And also, it turns out she also mentions that in countries that consume the most soy, especially like in Eastern Asia,
Hmm.
have the lowest rates of things like breast cancer and prostate cancer. So I think that was the first thing she noticed that really got her to start looking into the studies. And then when she found all the studies that showed its pr- cancer protective benefits, that's when she changed her recommendations. So yeah,
That's
it's just
good to
a
know.
lot,
Okay.
a lot of really interesting studies that a lot of people just aren't aware of. So it's important to increase awareness about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely important. Um, and I'm gonna definitely look her up and do some
For
research.
sure, she has a lot of videos on YouTube. She has a book as well.
Okay.
Especially for, I mean, this is good information for like for like everyone to learn, but especially if someone is, let's say, has a gene for breast cancer, that they might have a higher risk, etc., like the BRCA1 gene. But
Hmm.
but like honestly, everyone should learn about it.
Absolutely. Okay. Good to know. So tell us also, as a future doctor specializing in lifestyle medicine, how do you see the healthcare system evolving to embrace nutrition as a key factor in treatment?
Yeah, so I definitely see it moving in the right direction right now. There are definitely a lot of there's already a lot of whole food plant-based doctors, lifestyle medicine doctors who are pretty much like leading the way, right? So, and but also there's a lot more awareness in terms of the community, right? So there's like a lot more people who are starting to learn about it and to see that it's actually possible. So in some cases, for example, like some of my mentees that I've worked with, because I've started in plant power since 2020, so it's been about pretty much 5 years now. And so it's usually like 3 or 4 jump starts per year. So I've done, oh, like we just started this year, so I've done like about 16 jump starts. So that's like a lot of mentees, that I've worked with. And I've noticed in like a lot of cases that they were able to tell their own doctors about what they were doing, and the doctors were really surprised about it. And it kind of opened up their minds to, like, to the fact that, that we can actually reverse disease with this way of eating. It's not just a matter of managing disease, which, this is kind of the terms that we learn, right? Managing, treating, controlling, but never like reverse or cure or heal, right? So
Mhm.
whereas lifestyle medicine doctors do use these terms, like it's particularly things like reverse and heal. And so once I think it's just a matter of like awareness, because the primary issue in the medical system is that there's not much focus on like prevention, like nutrition, lifestyle. It's more focused on like pharmaceutical approaches, right? So, and that's basically, that's just the way the system works. So, but but the good news is that once the awareness, and I think it is improving, but as the awareness of this way of eating starts to increase within like the medical schools, within like, nursing schools, et cetera, within health professional schools in general, I think that's when it'll really start to get to the next level. And actually, a lot of the current lifestyle medicine doctors, plant-based doctors, they're already doing that. Like they're working with medical schools. They do lectures at medical schools. They're trying to improve the curriculum, and actually, there's certain schools that are already doing that, which are some of the ones that I'm applying to. Like Rutgers is already implementing this. There's one in Ohio, I think, Wright State, and I think there's one in Greensboro, North Carolina, I think. So yeah, there's definitely a few of them that are starting to implement this, because I mean the studies are very clear that this way of eating is optimal for health. So yeah.
So, what's the difference between a naturopath and a lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
medicine doctor? So, I know a lifestyle medicine is an MD, but is
Mm-hmm.
there a major difference in how they approach medicine at all? That
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of overlap between a naturopath and lifestyle medicine, MD or DO. So typically, I mean, the current lifestyle medicine doctors, most of them are MDs, but there's a few DOs as well. But um, and yeah, I think it's really because I think the main overlaps are that they're very open to like holistic health, right? They're very open to like using natural foods, like using natural herbs and spices, because that's what the research shows. I mean, like, I mean, most people know that there are a lot of benefits to like herbal medicine, right? Or like, even things like things growing up, right? Like drinking chamomile tea if you have a stomach ache, or like things like that, like drinking ginger tea or whatever. Like, so there's a lot of already this awareness that herbs and spices have a medicinal effect. So in terms of naturopathic medicine, they focus a lot on that, right? So using a lot of herbs and spices, and I think a lot of naturopaths are also realizing, yeah, we should also not just focus on that, but focus on the entire diet too, because if the person is still eating not very healthily, and they can still get some benefits from having like herbal tea or herbal concoctions, etc. But we really do see the benefits when it's a holistic change, where it's like, okay, let's change our entire diet, or our entire lifestyle. So I think, and yeah, so there's pretty much a lot of overlap in terms of that. I guess the only difference is that the MD and the DOs can prescribe if they need to, but the lifestyle medicine doctors use that as like a secondary option. It's more like, okay, let's say a patient comes in with hypertension. The first thing I'm not going to do is say, all right, here's a medication. I'll see you in 3 months. Like, no, no. Let's figure out why we have the hypertension. Let's look into your diet, mostly diet, but also exercise habits, lifestyle, stress management, right? So really, it's a more holistic approach. And so, and yeah, like naturopaths like also do that, and I think they're able to prescribe too, but I'm not too sure about that. So there really aren't too many differences between them. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Hmm.
So how does working in the Bronx and the diverse communities influence your approach to coaching and mentoring?
Yeah. So as I was saying before, so the Bronx is actually there was this whole movement called Not 62. So it's hashtag Not 62. So there's a lot of so in New York State there's 62 counties, and so the Bronx is one of the counties, and it was last place, I think, ever since like the 90s or something like that, or 80s. It was like last place in terms of health outcomes, in terms of risk of chronic diseases, you know childhood obesity, infant mortality rate, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's so many different factors, right? So obviously this community really really needs this information, because and what I've seen is people are pretty receptive to it, because actually a lot of the in-person classes that I've done have been either in the Bronx or like northern Manhattan, which are very similar in terms of demographic. um a lot, mostly Hispanic, Black, right? So it's a lot of really a lot of the same diseases that like we're seeing, right? A lot of similar conditions. So, and these are the same conditions that improve drastically with this way of eating. So although there is a big issue of chronic conditions here, I all because of that, I do see the incredible potential of this way of eating becoming more popular, right? Like people being more aware of it. And from what I've done, like from what I've done personally in terms of like the in-person classes, and in terms of the virtual ones, a decent amount of people are from the Bronx, but they're pretty much widespread around New York. But also with the virtual ones, we get people from other cities and states too. But what I've seen is people are definitely open to it, because they see what's going on, right, in the community. All of them, either themselves or have family members or friends that have these same chronic conditions, and they're honestly, people are tired of the same answers. Oh, just eat healthy, lose weight, like just like the generic advice that they get from their doctors. And then they're also tired of taking pills, right? So they want something new. And that's what I've seen when we go to different places. So we've done the in-person classes at clinics in the Bronx. We've done it at Last time we did it at, like, in November, we did it at Emblem Health. So it's like the Emblem Health office in the Bronx. And when they have like a little room where they do like yoga classes and all these things. So we showed up there, with our food demo and our and they were really open to it. They were like, wow, this is something that I wish everybody knew. And I was like, well, now each of you can spread the word, because I think that's really what it is, right? Like, once one person knows something new, each person is connected to like hundreds of people, maybe, right? So imagine how many people can be impacted just from having a class of even like 10 to 15 people, which is, typically, or that's how many people we get for those classes. Um, each of them share, like, spreading the word to their friends and family. And I think that's a big way of that's like a big way to do it, because we can't wait until the institutions do something, right, or the government does something. We can do a lot in, like, the meantime. So I think with the interpersonal, mouth to mouth, but also these days with the internet, it's so much easier, because you can literally share a link of like a documentary, or like a video that like a presentation from a doctor or something, within seconds, right, to someone across the world. So we can definitely use the internet. I mean, like the way we're doing it now, right, with live streaming and like interviews and all these things. So there's definitely a lot of potential. So I definitely see it moving in the right direction.
Awesome. So tell me, what is one of your like favorite documentaries that you've
Yeah,
seen?
so the one that the first one I ever saw was Forks Over Knives, and
Mhm.
that's kind of like near and dear to my heart because it's the very first one I saw. So that was like 2014, I think I saw it. Like yeah, like late 2014, because I started doing this pretty much around now. So it's pretty much like January, February of 2015. So pretty much 10 years now. And so I think late 2014, like around like December, I saw that one. But it was around since I think 2011 or 2012. And then I think I saw What the Health after that. Then I saw the Plant Pure Nation, which is kind of like a second, like a part two of Forks Over Knives. Then I saw Game Changers in 2018. And then I saw a few others like Eating You Alive. Yeah, there's like and then I saw some of the more ethical ones too, like Cowspiracy and the another one called there's also Seaspiracy, which is about like seafood and everything,
I
fish
haven't seen
and
those two. I gotta check those two out.
yeah. And then there's also Dominion, which is kind of hard to watch because it's about the treatment of animals and factory farms and all these. So I've seen a good amount of the more health based ones, and also the ethical ones. I saw the health ones first, and then the ethical ones later. But it just further solidified this way of eating. It was like not only is it healthier to eat this way, but you're also not contributing to the unethical treatment of so many different kinds of animals. So
Yeah.
and also
Another.
the environmental aspects too. There's also a lot of environmental aspects as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now the last one you said Dominion, right? That was the name of it?
yeah. It's Dominion. I'll put it in the chat as well. Dominion. Yeah, those are pretty much the ones that come to mind right now.
Okay. So, as a medical school applicant, how do you plan to integrate plant-based nutrition into your future medical practice?
Yeah, so actually, similarly to a lot of the current plant-based doctors, basically emphasizing the importance of nutrition and lifestyle. Um, Obviously, so a lot of it's going to be like education, right? So kind of like what I was saying before, like let's say if I have a patient come in with a certain chronic disease, I would focus on understanding their current nutritional lifestyle, and then helping them to make practical changes. And so typically like the way that lifestyle medicine doctors work now is they'll have a lifestyle medicine coach, which is pretty much what I do now. So it's like doctor, patient, coach, right? So I mean, sorry, yeah, doctor, patient, coach. So that way, it really helps the people get to work on the practical aspects, right? Because the doctor can only do so much in like a 15 to 30 minute visit, right? So but you can still share a lot within that time. So it's like sharing with them the basics of it, sharing with them different like websites to go to, different documentaries. Or honestly, I plan on having like a bunch of flyers in my office, like, and also maybe like a bunch of charts on the wall, like healthiest foods or like the calorie density chart or things like that, right? Maybe common myths and misconceptions or something. So things like that. So when people walk in, they see, okay, this is a different kind of doctor. He's not just gonna like prescribe me a pill or something like that. It's gonna be like, okay, like let's really focus on why you have hypertension, why you have high cholesterol, why you have diabetes, and it's almost always a diet related thing. So focusing on that and help working with the coach to work with them, on like a day to day basis or a week by week basis. So yeah, that's pretty much like the way I see it, and maybe writing a book in the future, maybe
Okay.
since a lot of the plant based doctors have, but I would have to kind of, I was thinking maybe do like related to my own story as well. So maybe something like that to make it more unique, because there's a lot of books that are that that are actually very similar. So I kind of wanted to make it like a little bit different. But that's still something that I'm thinking about.
Nice. So, what is like a staple food in your diet? Something that you eat often?
Yeah. Well, in terms of specific food, it's kind of hard to pick one, but I can name some meals, like some of my favorite meals. So something as simple as like rice, beans, and veggies. So like that's like one of my simplest ones. And I usually like to mix up the beans. I have like two or three kinds of beans in one dish, so that helps improve the amount of nutrients you're getting, the different because our gut microbiome loves diversity
Mhm.
of plant foods, of course. So trying to just include a lot of colors, including a lot of colors in them. Asparagus is turns out to be one of my favorites actually.
Oh,
It's
nice.
yeah, and also I like a lot of the cruciferous vegetables. I like avocados. I love the creamy, healthy fat aspect. I love adding walnuts to my salads. Especially for the omega-3 fats, etc. Um, I like berries. I'm a huge fan of berries, and these are not just for the health benefits, but I also like the taste. And this is something that it's important for people to know because our taste buds adapt like over time, right? So even if someone might not like a certain veggie, just keep trying small amounts of it, right? Or a certain fruit or something. I mean, for fruits, pretty much they're like a little bit easier because they're sweeter. I think most people have issues with veggies, but I think once you start having like small amounts of it, eventually you might start to like it. So this is for like anyone who's starting to transition, right? Um, and yeah, I also like to include a lot of different types of whole grains like quinoa. Quinoa is my favorite whole grain because of the high protein content. Um, Also, flax and chia seeds. I like to put them in my smoothies. Speaking of which, green smoothies. I try to have one almost daily, and I learned that from Dr. Brooke Goldner, who is another amazing story. She actually reversed her lupus. I
You
can,
have
I
to give her the spelling of her name too, so we can put it up on the
yeah,
banner.
I could put it in the chat too. So Dr. Brooke Goldner, she actually was able to reverse her lupus, and she did it with plant-based eating. She was mostly raw. So especially in the beginning, she did a lot of mostly raw just to get that really real healing effect. So a lot of smoothies and salads, really. That's pretty. But big salads where she was really full afterwards. So this is another kind of thing that's really important. Make sure you're getting a lot of your greens in, a lot of your veggies in, because there's different ways to do plant-based, right? Some of them are less healthy than others. It's already great to start going plant-based, but if you want to optimize to the next level, you really want to get a really good amount of these raw foods in, like a lot of green smoothies and salads, and so that's what she did. She was able to reverse her lupus, and now it changed her entire perspective on medicine and health and nutrition, etc. So now she helps others do similar things with autoimmune diseases, but in general. So yeah, that's still yeah. Those are some of my. Oh, I like tofu as well. Like I like, especially someone that goes to the gym and plays sports. I want to make sure I'm getting a decent amount of protein in. So I'm getting a decent amount of tofu, beans, lentils. Yeah. I also do protein shakes. So yeah, there's a lot of ways. Because there's so many foods within the plant-based world. There's thousands of foods. There's so many combinations of recipes and meals. So I always tell people, just work with the stuff you like already. Like work with the veggies you already like, with the fruits you already like, the beans and lentils, and then literally like just start to experiment, start to be creative, and then before you know it, like I always tell people, like anyone can eventually make their own cookbook, because eventually you start to come up with so many interesting recipes. Even if you adopted it from somewhere else, you can always like modify it to make your own. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, another misconception a lot of people get is B12 and not being able to get
Hmm.
the B12 they need in their diet. I
Yeah.
personally get it from nori or like spirulina. But do you
Mm-hmm.
have any other like suggestions for where we can get our B12 in our diet?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it turns out that even amongst omnivores, well, some of them tend to be B12 deficient because even in the animal foods, it's a lot more deficient now. Mostly because the soils are like a
Mhm.
little bit less rich. So because that's where because it comes from the bacteria in the soil actually, and that's how it gets to the animal. But by the time it gets to the person, if even if they're eating the animal food, it's not going to be as much. So I honestly pretty much everyone should be either supplementing with a B12, which is really easy to do, or get it from some kind of food like nori, etc. Also, nutritional yeast tends to have B12, which is especially the fortified ones. So that's a really easy way to get B12. So yeah, so honestly, it's not really an issue. It's really easy to supplement. Most B12 supplements are pretty inexpensive too. So and yeah, so but honestly, even omnivores should be making sure that their B12 levels are optimal.
Yeah, I've never tried nutritional yeast, but I did hear that before. They usually use it in like cheeses, right?
Yeah, so you can actually make cheese sauce with it. I could send you a recipe from that. It's really easy to make. Yeah, and it tastes even better than the cheese sauces. Like the Dorito or the like
Processed
the not
cheese.
yeah like the nacho cheese sauce that people dip with. It
Hmm.
tastes even better than that because you taste like you don't taste the processed chemicals in it and stuff like that. Plus, since it's not dairy, it's a lot healthier. So
Okay, good to know. You know what? I have this like, so I just recently moved to Philly,
oh, nice.
and I could use a cheese like that for my cheesesteak. I can make a little, mock
Yeah.
cheesesteak. I just my dad just came to visit not too
Mm-hmm.
long ago, and I'm trying to transition him. I don't think he's gonna go all the way, but I mean,
Well, at least eating more plants is good. Yeah,
yeah, he's making small steps. So I made him
that's
this
good.
mock fried fish because he likes to fry like whiting fish or like
Mm-hmm.
catfish. So I fried him some fish with hearts of palm, and he was
Nice.
surprised that it was pretty close. But
Yeah, and that's another tip. Like, there's so many recipes of like animal food like dishes, and that's
mhm.
perfect for people like, for example, cheese sauce or like lentil burgers or tofu scramble, which is one of my favorites. So there's tons of meals like that really help people to see, wow, this is actually doable.
It's not so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, so what advice do you have for someone who is curious about a whole food plant-based diet but feels overwhelmed at making the switch? You kind of mentioned a few tips
Hmm.
for people, but
Yeah, for sure. Like starting small and like starting like as you were saying, like gradual changes. Like starting with the things you already like. Don't make it too complicated. Like, we don't have to make a mushroom wing. Like starting off. Like let's just start simple. Start with some beans, some veggies, some fruits. Make some easy dishes. Make pasta with vegetables, pasta with tomato sauce, etc. Like there's so many, and even within so many ethnic cultural backgrounds, there's so many plant-based dishes. So like you can just start even it's just like whichever herbs and seasonings and like herbs and spices that you want to use, it's fine. Just start incorporating more plant foods, and then little by little start, as we say, crowding out like the animal foods and the processed foods. Also, make sure you're reading the ingredients because there's always a lot of hidden things in the ingredients that we don't want. Like one of the tips, like if you can't pronounce it, just don't eat it. Like, or if it sounds weird, if it's not something that you recognize, it's better. But honestly, most of what we're eating is just real foods, right? It's just broccoli just has one ingredient, which is just that. The apple has just one ingredient. So we're pretty much, eating real foods. You just combine them in different ways, right? So that kind of helps people to see that it's definitely doable, and it's just a matter of making gradual changes. So think of like each week as a way to either add another meal or dish, or and or starts like subtracting some of the foods, like some of the animal foods, some of the processed foods, and finding good substitutions for them. And there are tons of those too. So
Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you. You gave us a wealth of knowledge today. Like we got
thank you.
some really good information.
Oh yeah,
But
thank you so much.
I do want to, let people know your email address so they maybe want to get in touch with you for maybe
Yeah,
some,
for sure.
if at all. So we put that on the screen. Is there a website for Plant Powered Metro New York that we should put up for people
Oh
too?
yes, yeah. I can link it in the chat right now. Let me just fetch it right
Yeah,
now.
because as
Um,
we mentioned, he is a mentor and
yeah.
does.
So for sure, definitely check out plantpoweredmetrony.org. We also have a YouTube channel. Um, and there's tons of information on the website, and the YouTube channel is a lot of like cooking videos and interview videos too. Um, and yeah, there's we have jump starts typically every few months. The next English jump start is actually going to be like in the fall. So I'll definitely reach out to you with the link, and you can send it out to your community.
Yeah, because I
And
told you I want to get involved.
oh
In
yeah,
some
and you
type of
can
way.
and if you want to become a mentor too, like I can, there's definitely like there's like a mentor training and everything, and but also we have a Spanish jumpstart too. It's coming up in April, so I'll also send that out to you, and you can send that out to your community as well. But there's always events, so there's an event page, which if you just go to Plant Parametric and you just go to events on the top right, you'll see like there's always a lot of virtual events and in-person stuff. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to get involved, and we're doing our best to expand, to a more upstate and more like Long Island, but also like other cities too. So, and
Well,
Philly's
if
close
y'all,
by. So,
if
sorry.
y'all expand, I'm here
Oh yeah, yeah, for
and
sure.
help
Thank you
where
so
I
much.
can.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It'll always be great to, to have more, especially since you're in the medical field. We could definitely use more like mentors who are already in the medical field. I think we have a few nurses who are our mentors. Some of them are doctors too. We have a few nutritionists. We have a few, people in other careers too. Like we have a few lawyers in there, but we're all on the same mission of plant-based eating and empowering others to incorporate this to optimize their health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Bryant. I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Is there
Thank
any like
you.
parting words that you have for the audience or anything, any last words
Well,
that you want
well, first off, thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure to be here to share my story, share some tips and strategies, etc. Yeah, I would say just if you're someone who's interested in optimizing your health, I would say start looking into whole food plant based nutrition. There's a lot of resources, a lot of things online you can find, YouTube videos, etc. Start, as I was saying before, start with gradual changes, and then you'll start to see the benefits. And just think of the benefits not just short term, but also long term, like decreasing risk of things like cancer, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, etc. So there's um there's a lot to it, and plus, as we were saying before, you get instant benefits. You get things like improvements in energy, improvements in mental health, digestion, course of course things like weight loss, which is one of the positive benefits of this too. But we always try to focus on health first, and the weight loss is just one of the cool perks to it. But
to?
yeah, so that's pretty much like my advice to people. Just start gradually, and then eventually you'll see amazing results.
Well, thank you again. And I'll
Yeah,
definitely be in
of
touch. We'll
course.
we'll talk later on, okay? Thank you
Oh yeah,
again.
oh yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Take care.
Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.
Thank
All right, y'all. Well, thank you for joining us for our season 2 premiere of Kiss My Asparagus. Until next time, I'm your host, Latasha Husband, and have a good one. Good night.